In today's episode, we're going to cover how I actually purchased 17 properties in 3 months. We're going to learn about how I found out about the deal, what I did to find the finances, and who I actually spoke to, and how I actually brought out my credit score in a period of 1 month just to qualify for the loan, and then just take it from there. And without further ado, let's just dive in. So the way I found out about the deal, it was actually through my property manager / realtor. So it is no secret that I have rental properties in Alabama. And so what happened was he reached out to me one day and he said, hey, I have this whole complex of 17 properties that the seller is trying to get rid of because he wants to use that money and buy something bigger. And I was like, wow, how nice. And what's the deal, right? So he went ahead and he gave me the numbers, the rentals for every month, and it all turned out to be over that 10% ROI. It was actually above 30%, if I'm not mistaken. So for those who don't know, ROI means return on investment. And for a deal to be worth it, it has to be at least over 10%. And it has to cash flow after all expenses at least $100,000. Sorry. It has to cash flow at least $100 a month. That's the bare minimum. How do I achieve these numbers? That's going to be a topic for another subject, because otherwise it's going to be a lengthy video. But for the purpose of this training, we're going to stick to these numbers. And I figure, okay, that sounds good. I really like the numbers, but how do I come up with the down payment? So the asking price was over $500,000. So you can do the math. I actually needed a big down payment. And for those who don't know, when you are purchasing a deal that is so large, it becomes automatically a business loan. So for those who don't know, properties from 1 to 4 units are considered residential. Anything 5 units and above is considered business. So what I needed to do is to qualify for a business mortgage, a business loan. And the numbers work a little bit different. So as opposed to needing 5 or 20% down, I actually needed at least 25% down. So for simplicity purposes, we're gonna stick to $500,000. So when a deal costs you $500,000, you will need $125K. I was like, that's a lot of money. I could sell my car. I could work like a crazy mad woman. There's no way I'm gonna come up with $125,000 in 3 months, because that's basically what I needed to do the closing. So I started getting a little creative, and I, of course, went on YouTube. I did some Google search. I went to a bunch of local RIAs. I attended some of the elite symposiums for those who are elite students. And I started picking on people's brain and kind of like sharing my story. Hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Do you have any idea how I can actually achieve that? And it wasn't until I came across to one of the mentors, some of you might know it, Vicky Green, and she suggested, why don't you do a cash out refinance? So for those who don't really understand what a cash out refinance is, I'm going to explain it to you at a very high level, but I'm also creating another video just to cover cash out refinances. So what a cash out refinance is, or a cash out refi like some would call it, it's basically equity taken out of your property or any property in exchange for cash or money. So most lenders typically have a $25 to $75 LTV, loan to value. And basically what that means is that you get to keep 25% equity in your property, and the bank is willing to finance up to 75% of the total market value on that day for a loan. So let's say, for example, if your house, for simplicity purposes, is worth $100,000, what the bank is going to be willing to give you is 75,000, up to 75,000 in your as a cash out refinance. So now you know you're gonna have $75,000 available for a down payment. For some type of purchases that might be enough, but for me, I needed at least 125. So 75,000 wasn't really enough, and I actually took out a couple of months earlier another cash out refinance without knowing that it was actually called a cash out refinance for my first condo to purchase the second one. So I was actually running out of choices. And so what I did was to try to get engaged with more lenders to see what else could be done, maybe with the least amount of possible. So I kept the contact that Vicky gave me and actually reached out to him to see what could be done. And he was willing to do both for me, the cash out refi and also the financing of the property. Meaning I was gonna have two mortgages, one for the refinance and two for the actual purchase of all of those 17 properties. But the interesting thing is where am I gonna find a property that's willing to give me up to at least 125,000 for me to do a down payment? What do I offer those people? What incentives do I have to give someone or an investor that's gonna let me take the money out just so I can invest and maybe give them some interest in exchange, which I did, but I mean, how much exactly, right? And so trying to find more answers led me to another website that's called Scotsmansguy.com. And this is a repository of every single lender for any type of loan that you can ever need for a real estate investment. So they offer hard money lending, they offer commercial loans, they offer residential loans. So Scotsman's Guide, it's a great tool. It is actually a repository that is going to tell you about every single lender that's out there in all 50 states. So all you got to do is just to go to a one-stop shop, take a look at the lenders that are available out there and start reaching out to them. So you can find anything from a hard money lender, a conventional residential loan, commercial loans out there, and basically learn about their terms. You're really lucky if you actually found someone that can give you a 25/75. Most lenders, last time I checked back in April 2018, were asking for a 40/60, meaning the most they were willing to give you was a 60% of cash value on your property. And just to make it clear, before you even proceed to any cash out refinance, let's say you have a property that you have available and you're willing to take out a cash out refinance, you have to make sure you have at least 25% equity in there. So for example, let's say you've owned a property for a couple of years and you pay down $40,000 out of the $100,000. That means you only have 40% equity in that property. And minus the 25, the most you're gonna get out of it is actually 15%, which translates to $15,000. So you don't get to decide how much is your property worth. You actually have to go to the bank and they're gonna bring someone in and they're gonna assess the value of the property and decide how much it's worth. I'm actually planning on creating another video in details on what to expect on a cash out refinance, but for the purpose of today's video, I'm just gonna keep it at a very high level. I think this is as much as you need to know, and we're just gonna move on. So now we're gonna talk about credit. How did I actually manage to bring my credit within 1 month just so I could qualify for the best rate possible for the loan, for the cash out refinance, and just to qualify as in general to bring my credit. So given that I've recently opened up a bunch of credit cards a couple of months back, my score actually suffered a little bit. And so basically what happened was I was, I believe, at a 620 and my FICO score, and I needed to bring it up to at least a 750, an average of 750 with all three, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And it's just amazing how much you can learn by talking to people. You realize that the answers are always in front of you, but it was more of a matter of like putting the pieces together and be able to understand, oh, I can make something out of this, right? So I had some money in my 401k saved. I think it was $40,000 or something like that. That was exactly the amount of money that that was exactly the amount of money that I was owing on my credit cards at the time. So what I did, I took a loan in my 401k. I paid down all of my credit card debt, all within a week from my cards from being due. So I knew that I had exactly 1 week before the banks went ahead and reported to the credit bureaus. I waited 2 weeks, and literally my score went from 620 all the way up to 750. And so I called the lender and I said, hey, I'm ready. You can go ahead and just run my credit because I want to make sure I can lock in the rate. And I was able to get the lowest rate possible. And then once I got that, I did the same trick I taught you guys in earlier videos. I leveraged Venmo and plastic again. I also managed to open 2 more credit cards at 0% APR. And I did the balance transfer, I paid my rent with it, and I also did the Venmo thing, and I repaid back that money. And voila, that's how I actually managed to repay that 401k loan back again. Now, the purchasing part. That was actually quite stressful because there was a lot that was happening beyond my control. And so I just wanted to share you what exactly to expect. Every situation is gonna be different, but in my case, I had to deal with appraisals. When you're doing a cash out refinance, you have to pay for appraisals because they need to know how much exactly each of the properties are worth, what's the market value, and how much equity you have in it. So you have to produce a lot of paperwork, not just for that, but also on the buying side. They actually have to allow the bank to go in on the seller side to figure it out, okay, what's the market value today for all of your 17 properties. So that way they can determine whether they were willing to sell it or not. It was definitely a learning experience. Up to before that time, all I did was to own single family rentals. I've never owned 17 properties in one sit. So the rates are actually, they're definitely very different from when you handle a commercial loan. Prices are actually a lot higher when you're doing anything that's commercial because, go figure, if you're doing business, chances are you have more money rather than the average Joe who's trying to save up and buy a house. And so again, I had to deal with appraisals. I had to deal with flood insurance. So you have to do everything yourself. When you buy a rental property, the bank actually takes care of everything for you. All you gotta do is just to give them the paperwork, give them the contact, and they will just reach out to the insurance company. At least in my experience, every bank works different, but my bank basically made me act as the broker for the bank. I was representing the bank and I was representing myself. So it was actually quite interesting. A lot of pain points. Definitely grew a lot, definitely learned a lot from that experience. I ended up using credit cards all over again to pay for the appraisals that were on average about $700 per property because again, they're a commercial. And once that it's all taken care of, you get a report. And then from that report, the bank is gonna say, okay, we're gonna give you this much, we're gonna give you that much, and voila, you're gonna move on to closing. And then, so luckily for me, Alabama didn't require an attorney, but the property that I was refinancing happened to be in New York. So I met a couple of investors who were really understanding and they were actually interested in what I had to offer. We negotiated a good rate, so I was able to negotiate the refinance, the term where I was actually gonna take to give them the money back for the value of their condo. And New York is actually an attorney state, so I needed to hire an attorney and I have to pay for attorney's fees. In Alabama, I didn't have to worry. It was actually a small town, so the seller knew the attorney that was doing the closing who happened to own a title company. I didn't need to hire an attorney, but he just happened to be an attorney, so it just worked out all for the best. And then you have to account for reserve money. I forgot what the percentage is, but it was definitely more than the 125 that I needed. So I think I needed have a total of 200,000. So that way they can see the reserves, they can account for any additional costs, any attorney fees and stuff like that. And that entire process actually took 3 months to take care of. There was a lot of back and forth. I also learned that the lenders, at the end of the day, they wipe out every single email that they have. So make sure you actually keep a copy in your email account, because chances are if they wipe it out the night before and they didn't get to that email, you're gonna have to resend it back again the next day. That's definitely not fun, but thankfully I'm very organized and I leverage this baby right here. And every time I got a text from the lender, all I did was just to forward. I went out to my inbox and I just clicked resend, and voila, he got it right there and there. And so yeah, in a nutshell, that was basically my experience. It sounds fairly simple, but again, there was a lot of back and forth. So you have to polish your public speaking skills, your negotiation skills. But in the end, it's an experience that is well worth learning. And that actually put me closer to the total of 24. I was actually able to get, I believe it was 300,000 out of the refinance, because some of you know the properties in New York are actually quite high. The cost of the properties are actually high. And so I use 100, I think up to 140,000 for the 17 properties. And then I took the difference and I went to Florida, another state that I invest in, and I ended up buying 2 family houses with that. And that put me for a total of 24. Including the ones that I owned before pursuing the 17 complex, the 17 unit complex. So that's it for today. I hope you find that very helpful, and if you want to find out more details that I probably might have not covered in this video, feel free to shoot me an email or just leave a comment down below. I will love to answer your questions and hopefully learn more about you, about your journey. I would like to put that information in a video and share it with the rest of the world. Hopefully they can actually grow, leveraging some of the information that we're sharing right here in this channel. So without further ado, I will talk to you soon and see you then. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye.